This video is based on a viewer request. I was asked to do a comparison video between my Weber Summit Kamado and the Kamado Joe. I had a couple of Cornish hens in my freezer, so I got them prepped, seasoned, and ready to go. So I'm gonna put one on the Summit Kamado, one on the Kamado Joe. On the consumer market, ceramic cookers like the Kamado Joe, the Big Green Egg, really grew in popularity amongst people who like to cook with charcoal because of that material that they're built with. Very solid, heavy duty. Once you get that temperature locked in, it's going to stay in place. When it comes to the downsides when cooking with a ceramic cooker, two main things come to mind. One, if you do overshoot your desired temperature, they can be difficult to get back down into the temperature range that you want because of that solid ceramic material, because it does hold that temperature so well. It's going to take you some time to get that temperature back down, so that can be a little bit tricky, something you need to keep an eye out on. And then the other is just, these things are heavy, man. I mean, you're going to need some help just getting this ceramic cooker into your backyard, get it into position, because it's heavy. So once you do get it in place, you're not going to want to move it around too much. Weber is a company in barbecue that we've all probably heard of at some point or another. They've had big success with their kettle grills, with their gas grills. So of course they want to get in on the market for anything barbecue that is trending, that is hot. We've seen them come out with a pellet grill, and then also with regard to these ceramic cookers, these Kamados, their answer to the Big Green Egg and the Kamado Joe and other ceramic cookers, they came out with the Weber Summit Charcoal, and then they later retitled that cooker and renamed it the Weber Summit Kamado to make their intentions about competing with the Kamados even more clear. They just put Kamado right in the name, the Weber Summit Kamado. I've owned the Kamado Joe and a Weber Summit Kamado for several years. I've done a large number of cooks on both. Both of them are fantastic smokers. They're both very versatile. They can be used not just for smoking, but they can be used for high temperature grilling as well. They both do a great job of holding temperatures. For someone who's really just getting into barbecue, or even someone with a lot of experience, I think the ability to control, make adjustments when needed, just comes a little bit easier with the Summit Kamado. But that's no knock against the Kamado Joe. I mean, both are fantastic cookers. I have no problem recommending either of them for whatever task you're trying to do. Especially when it comes to ceramic cookers, I give props to the Kamado Joe company because they innovate. They constantly are coming out with new accessories, and they're trying to make that cooking experience better. That's something that Weber also does, and that's what one of their advantages is, that there are a ton of accessories available for the Summit Kamado, both from Weber themselves as well as from third parties. So both of them, your cooking experience with both, you get them, take the time to learn, you're going to have a good experience with either one of them. In all the years that I've had both smokers, I have not yet done any type of a direct head-to-head comparison video between the two. So we're going to do that today. We're going to cook these hens, one on each, and we're just looking for some basic things. How does the overall flavor compare? The smoke profile? Is there a difference in appearance once we get done with the cook? Let's see how the two compare head to head. Weber Summit Kamado versus the Kamado Joe. Now, in both cookers, there are a lot of different ways you can get your fire started. I'm just going to do it the same for both. So I just put a wax cube towards the front of both cookers, and we've made sure that we've got the oxygen intake on both open, but I'm going to light them up inside of the cooking chambers here, and I'm just going to leave the lids open for both. What I want to see happen is I want to see the coals begin to light up and the front part of the cooker will begin to ash over first. And then as we go through the cook, the ashed over coals will light up the coals going from the front to the back. And we're going to do that for both. And it should produce enough heat to keep the temperature that I'm looking for. Basically try and keep both of these cookers like 275 and up. I think ideally I want it to be between 300 and maybe 375, as much as 400. I think that does pretty well when it comes to cooking poultry. I'm confident that I'll get enough smoke flavor from the coals from these pecan chunks, but I do want to cook it at a little bit higher temperature than maybe I normally would with other meats in terms of smoking, because it doesn't take much to get a good smoke flavor on poultry, and the higher heat will help make that skin less rubbery than if you smoke it at like traditional smoking temperatures, say 225 to 275. So that's the objective. So like I said, I'm going to leave the lids open on both cookers. Just going to let this burn. I'll come back in about 10 minutes, see how things are going. Most likely after 10 minutes, I'll be able to close the lids and then let both cookers come up to temperature. But for the first 10, we're just going to leave it open like this and let the coals begin to get hot, let them ash over. We've got both smokers up to temperature. Now I will say the Kamado Joe was a little bit more difficult. We took about 20-25 minutes longer for me to get it up to temperature. Really easy to get the Summit Kamado up. I think it got up to temperature. It only took me about 10 minutes. Now it is a relatively cool day here in the Bay Area. It's currently 57 degrees, not too breezy. So conditions are pretty good for barbecuing in January. Now for both of these cookers, because the Kamado Joe doesn't have a deflector plate, I'm not going to use the deflector plate that comes with the Weber Summit Kamado. So here we're getting the Cornish hen set up on the Kamado Joe, and for good measure, just another comparison point, I'm going to use the meter on both cooks, just to kind of give a sense of how the meter plus, which is what I have, how well it works inside of each cooker. I don't think I've ever used it with the Kamado Joe. All right, let's get our chicken over here on the Summit Kamado. So again, no deflector plate. Gonna wait a couple of minutes before I put the meter plus over here, because I want to get the one set up first so I can tell them apart on my phone. So I'll come back a little bit later and put the meter plus in the Summit Kamado version. So other than that, once I get the pluses, the meters put in for both, really not much else to do. Just some more commentary on the setup. Just had to do a little bit more tinkering with the Kamado Joe. And again, that's to be expected though. The build is much heavier, much thicker walls that, you're trying to warm up. So fully expected it to take a little bit longer to get it up to temperature. And again, just has been my observation that adjustments are also just easier to come by on the Summit Kamado. Doesn't take much in terms of adjusting if you do need to do that to get the temperature where you want. So as you can see right now, just going off of the temperature, we're right at 300 degrees on the Summit Kamado. Hopefully you guys can read my iPhone screen here, but just using the meter plus, I can say from inside of the house, no issues with connectivity with either the Kamado Joe or the Weber Summit Kamado. Connection has stayed strong, has not been lost. So I was a little bit concerned about how it would do inside of the ceramic cooker, but so far no concerns at all, or no issues at all. And then you can see right now ambient temperature for both cookers are pretty close. Kamado Joe is running at 325. Summit Kamado is running at 322. So, and I haven't done any additional adjustments to either cooker, and this is just how I like it. I'm just gonna let them both do their thing. I'm not worried about trying to make it any hotter or make it any cooler. I'm fine with it being in that 325-degree range. The only thing I'll say about the meter, considering that I've only had these birds on the cooker for about 25-30 minutes, and it gives you the predictive time to finish the cook. So on one cooker, Kamado Joe, it's saying 22 minutes to go. Summit Kamado saying it's about 27 minutes to go. Here's another quick observation. Both cookers cooking at about 325 degrees. A lot more visible smoke coming from the Kamado Joe when compared to the Summit Kamado. And I have no idea why that's the case or whether or not that means anything. We're using Fogo lump charcoal in both with two pretty nice sized chunks of pecan wood. Just interesting to me. Can't really see any smoke coming from the Summit Kamado, whereas you can see a lot of smoke coming from the Kamado Joe. We're 45 minutes into this cook. Just got a notification on my meter that the Kamado Joe hen is just 3 minutes away. Another observation, haven't done any tinkering, but if you look at the Kamado Joe, ambient temperature has been increasing throughout this cook. It's now at up to 370 degrees, which again, I'm totally fine with it, but just an observation that the Kamado Joe, at least on this day, on this cook, the temperature continued to rise throughout the cook. So if I were cooking something else, maybe something that I wanted to keep a lower temperature on, I'd probably need to pay more attention to the Kamado Joe. Whereas on the Summit Kamado, now the temperature has gone up a little bit. It's gone up to 336 right now. So no tinkering, temperature rising a little bit throughout the cook, but not nearly as dramatic as on the Kamado Joe. And I'm about 9 minutes away, according to the Meter Plus, on the Summit Kamado version. So once the Kamado Joe version is ready, come back and let you guys see how it looks. All right, guys, both chickens are done. Again, over here on the left is the Kamado Joe version. On the right is the Summit Kamado version. I always like a little bit of dark meat, so I'm gonna get a little piece here from the Kamado Joe. Now the piece I bit into is definitely a little bit dark on the underside, and I can definitely taste the smoke. Now for comparison, here's the Summit Kamado version, and just looking at the drum, definitely didn't get as dark all around the drum as it did on the Kamado Joe. And I can taste the difference as well. So again, I did observe that the Kamado Joe was producing a lot more smoke than the Summit Kamado. I don't know, again, this isn't a scientific test, extremely small sample size, so again, but just based on this one cook on these two hens, if you're looking for more of a heavier smoke flavor, smoke profile, and I did pick pecan wood on purpose because I wanted to make sure that I could taste the smoke as opposed to going with a light fruit wood. More of a smoke profile, edge goes to Kamado Joe. If you don't want too much of a smoke profile, and not to say that the Summit Kamado isn't smoky, but I think it's more balanced, then I give the edge to the Summit Kamado. Janine just stole a piece from well, I won't say which one she took. She tried the white meat from both. Janine is indicating that she can definitely taste more of the smoke even on the white meat on the Kamado Joe version, and she likes it. I agree. I think you can taste the smoke definitely more pronounced again on the Kamado Joe. So Janine prefers the Kamado Joe. She likes that more intense smoke flavor. I actually like the Summit Kamado version because I think it's more balanced, and I feel like I'm tasting more of the rub with the meat with just a hint of the smoke. Whereas, especially when I bit into the dark meat on the KJ bird, that was a little bit much for me. So I prefer the Summit Kamado version. To sum it up, Janine is making the argument that she likes to take the pieces afterwards and repurpose it into other things, salads, other dishes, and she feels like the more intense smoke flavor coming from the Kamado Joe is going to stand out more. She's going to taste it better in those other dishes than the Summit Kamado version. This is perfect because in the end, I think no matter which one you pick, I think you're gonna have a great experience. Again, as I said at the top of the video, both are great cookers. I have no complaints about either one. I tend to, myself personally, prefer to cook with the Summit Kamado just because I don't have to make quite as many adjustments to it as I do the Kamado Joe. But that's not to say that the Kamado Joe is difficult to cook on, because it's not. It's really just a few little adjustments. The main thing on the Kamado Joe is just that you don't want to overshoot your desired temperature, because then it's more challenging to get it back to where you want it to be. So either way you go, you're gonna be fine. Some people are gonna like more of that smoke flavor. And again, I could visibly see while I was cooking more smoke coming from the Kamado Joe, whereas the Summit Kamado, it almost looked how it looks when you've got that perfect light thin blue smoke on a stick burner. It was almost impossible to see. I think both are winners, so you can't go wrong with either one. So I don't know. Let me know if you guys have a theory on why the Summit Kamado seems to produce less smoke than the Kamado Joe. Let me know in the comments. Also, do you prefer a heavier smoke profile than not? Which one do you think you would prefer? The Kamado Joe version or the Summit Kamado version? Love to know what you guys think. Again, thank you guys for the suggestion that I do this comparison video. Let me know if you'd like to see other comparison videos between the smokers that I have, or even if you'd like to see more comparison videos between the Summit Kamado and the Kamado Joe with different meats. Definitely want to produce videos that you guys want to see. So let me know in the comments. Appreciate your support. Appreciate all the feedback. Take care. Get out there. Enjoy your smokers. This is Kenyatta Robinson. Also, go to BackyardSmokeMaster.com for more videos, more recipes, and great info about barbecue. I'll see you in the next one.